Netflix right there,
100p.
All right, on the next tab, I clicked on whoever's link this is, and it just took me to Shopify.com. I don't know what you're up to over here.
It's supposed to go to Shopify,
No, it is.
but it's supposed to go to the Shopify.
Balance.
Yeah, Shopify.com/balance. So what you missed is because of the clean UI that is so on brand it resembles the normal Shopify homepage. Is we are actually on Shopify.com/balance, and so this is Shopify's bank, basically. Shopify functioning as a bank, where you manage your money and your business in a Shopify balance account, like with a debit card. So it's all the money you make from Shopify, instead of bringing that to somewhere else, you just kind of work through it all there, which basically means that all this makes sense. Shopify's entire roadmap, every single thing they've done, now they've like mastered payments and like kind of really turned the corner there, and competing with Amazon on warehouse space and all that. They have really just relentlessly positively executed. And this is just another example of this tool. But really what it's, they are, if there's any company that I think is like set up to be to do a Amazon style takeover in the way that any other industry has, like Shopify's already at a huge size, but they are continuing to come for absolutely everything, and they're enabling a huge generation of like DTC businesses and everything, which I think is great, and they're creating awesome tools for them. But it is going to be an absolute. They're going to have a monopoly on DTC. Like if they continue to put out tools this good, and I wonder if that kind of works for good or bad.
It's kind of in the vein of Mercury. Mercury's that like startup centric bank based out of Silicon Valley, right? I think it's like more tech centric, but it's the same thing.
I had a Mercury bank account. What was cool about it is that like anyone who's opened a business bank account, which I'm sure half of our audience has, you need normally like banking resolutions and all this stuff. It's like this whole annoying process.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, but with Mercury, it's just like all online, all digital.
I didn't have to do any of that.
Really? Yeah. Maybe not for like.
I don't know about banking resolutions, but you have to have articles of incorporation and show your registry and meet with a person, which is crazy.
Anything that's not single member, by the way, anything that's not single member, there has to be a banking resolution that says to the bank, this person is legally allowed to open a bank account on behalf of this company. Otherwise, you just run around just getting wild.
I think if the articles,
may have a banking resolution inside the articles organization, but it needs to have some sort of statement that says who's allowed to make banking decisions for this company. Anyway, I love this. As someone who's had a Shopify Capital loan, which is actually like an aggressively high interest rate, it's much higher than I think that people would think. It's like credit card style, like 20% type stuff. But with that said,
we can get you better money than that, bro. Well, we can get you some factoring.
Well, the thing is, it is sort of like super easy, non-point. There's no underwriting. It's all linked in, right? So I mean, you're paying for ease of capital there in some regards. And I think that one thing people forget about taking out debt is like all the points that go across to brokers and lenders and all this stuff, right? So like the idea that like Shopify emails me or Stripe emails me, which is the same, like they currently do, and they're like, hey, you're pre-approved for, and it's not like you're pre-approved bullshit pre-approved. It's like, if you press this button right now, here's $200,000, you're going to pay us back at 22%. And we're going to take it as a VIG, as a fee, right? Like we're just going to take it as a royalty out of your money, essentially, right? Like, which makes it an easier loan in some regards, right? So I don't have to pay you back with choice, which is good for both parties sometimes. But yeah, it's also cool.
There's a
2% cash back bonus too. I don't know if you look through the Shopify balance stuff, grow your business rewards, like earn 2% cash back.
It's super compelling.
So yeah.
Especially for a low margin business. I was going to say, someone had mentioned to me recently that one of the major banks either has or is working on, it's a tool that basically, if your mortgage is through them, and if you want to go take cash out of your mortgage, that they will basically go look at the value of because this is basically how many houses have changed like immense value over the last year. They'll go like revalue your house and give you like a factor between kind of what the money you put in it as and what the new value is, and then literally be like, yo, you want to move 50K to checking? And I was like, that's a fascinating concept.
Just like a completely internalized like refi mechanism.
Which I imagine is like crazy, and it sounds way much harder than it was. And this was a kind of like a speculative conversation, but I thought that was particularly interesting.
I mean, you just described some version of a refi, and it totally just an immediate, that entire space is like, ripe for, just click here to do it instead.
All kind of shit. Yeah, especially if your bank and your mortgage are in the same place.
Right, they got it all.
And so a couple of last notes on this, and this, kind of like I mentioned before, this idea that like micro business CPG is like coming after macro CPG. Now that it has all of these tools, like if you're Coca-Cola, you're being now assaulted by thousands of beverage companies that are offering a more interesting set of things to consumers than what you do, and like a healthier set, and are innovating faster and running ad campaigns faster, and like all of these things that are basically chipping away market share. And it hasn't really added up yet. I'm sure it like impacts the bottom line decently significantly, but like it's only going to come harder and faster, and all these tools enable that. And I think all of these, like this is the era for entrepreneurs, right? For this entrepreneurial class that we're in, and it's coming up, from listening to these podcasts, listening to these threads, is going to be like running all these micro businesses. They're all going to be successful entrepreneurs. You're building $1 million, multi-million dollar businesses from doing that, and then just chipping away at these, basically, monopolies that have existed for an extensive amount of time. And I think it's going to lead to just significantly more people kind of in that 1%, as all of these people that have run these enormous things are just going to get kind of chipped away at, and all these tools are super valuable for that. I am curious what that means like for the working class, because it becomes so much more volatile. Instead of like working for Coca-Cola for 40 years, I'm either working at like a white labeler that serves these brands, or I'm working in one of these brands. It's like, cool, they might just do it for 5 years, and like job security and that kind of thing. And so it's just an interesting trend that it is definitely happening, that I thought was worth throwing out there.
Yeah, I mean, to make a quick note on one of the things I see here, like I brought before, that 2% cash back, it just clicked for me, like what a genius marketing lever that is for them. Because if you spend your balance that you hold with them on marketing, the only way that marketing goes is to bring more money through the hopper that comes to them. They take a 2.75% merchant processing fee on top of. So yeah, I'll let you spend 2%. I'll give you 2% cash back all day. Yeah. If I go capture 2.75% from it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a super, super, super clever. And I think that it's sort of, sometimes I have this happen, and this happened with me with Microsoft and Activision, that acquisition, where like sometimes I'm like, these companies are so big, what are they going to do to like all of a sudden to like sort of like to go horizontal, because they're running out of vertical here. And then Microsoft bought Activision for $70 billion. I'm like, wow, that's massive. The gaming market in 2020, literally the gaming market in 2020 officially eclipsed the entire global music and movie market in 2020. Like, gaming is so massive, people don't even recognize how huge it is, and it has not even really reached like the super massive mobile yet. So it's just cool when I see stuff like this, because I've thought about Shopify and thought like, how do they grow? How do they make more money? I'm like, wow, like being a financial institution didn't click for me really in this regard, right? Like holding deposits.
Being everything. And then eventually like, hey, are there white labelers that all of our products use? Like, buy them.
Yeah.
Like there's so many opportunities I think they have to just continue integrating, and they seem to be doing this smarter and more intelligently than, you could just
and the way that
they're like, the warehousing and fulfillment angle, which I guess I'm not familiar with how that works with them, but that piece of their business or where they're headed is fascinating to me, just because of how fragmented it is. And, for every $1 million a year Shopify business there are hundreds of actual businesses that are just way smaller than that. And, I don't know. It's interesting.
Scooping up. They basically started buying properties adjacent to Amazon warehouses, like all over the United States. There's a play that they made a couple of years ago, and which is just making sure, okay, how do we compete with that with Prime? Essentially, it's just knowing anything in a Shopify, once you actually enter into a Shopify supply chain, which is just a whole other interesting.
The question, the one that I see sort of being an obvious one, and everyone thinks it's not going to happen until it happens. We see what happened with Amazon. Amazon starts building their own private label brands, their own Amazon brands in house, right? The ones that crush. Like, it hasn't come to everything yet, but now there's like over 1,000 Amazon brands, and they're just going to take over.
It's in fucking everything.
And so that's what I think about Shopify.
There's so many brands that use AI to do the creative for the brands. Like, that's how it works internally. Is they literally like just make up the names and logos. Like,
but look at like when I this just clicked for me. What about like Shopify apps, right? Like, it'd be so easy for Shopify to be like, okay, here's your number one app in our app store, because that's an entire business model on its own, right? Now we're going to make this internal. Instead, you can pay it as an upsell inside Shopify. By the way, you can still have your app here, but now you got to compete with the Shopify native, actual Shopify owned app that you pay $20 a month for.
And I wonder how much they're going to do it, because I think a lot of what they positioned against Amazon really well. Like, Amazon's going to come for your category. Like, this is why you should be selling direct to consumer. And I wonder if that's going to be the same thing from a development standpoint. They want to be open like that, or if they wanted to say, cool, we're just going to get everything that's relevant to that. And because it doesn't really need to be an open platform. It's not like WordPress. Like honestly, most of the Shopify apps are like trash. Like, the best ones are just ones that are like doing like little bits of alpha like e-com stuff, which is just like, okay, like how hard is that feature to really develop?
Well, and they're already taking a vig on the sales of that too, right? In the same way Apple does from the App Store. In fact, one thing I think was really funny was I was looking at we were talking about this earlier, but the super follow function on Twitter. And so super follow and tips on Twitter, because it's an app, just so you know, they're like, oh, we don't take any fee, or we take like a 0.2% fee, but 30% fee has to go to Apple, right? Like there's like
on the super file.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, because it, do you see what I'm saying? Because it's part of the App Store functionality. So in the same way that any app would have, so like Apple's just racking up 30% of that, if I remember correctly.
That marketplace life.
That marketplace
That's crazy.
money. Yeah. So and then don't get me wrong, Twitter's not taking a whole grip off it, but Apple's just like eating everyone's lunch, right? So anyway,
is that a thing? Is that actually the case? That's wild.
I mean, that would make sense, right? Like, unless they may get around that by having it where you can only sign up on desktop or something similar.
Or no, because here's the other function.
That's what Audible did forever.
Or Apple or Twitter can't take any vig, because that's the game Apple plays. You want to make money through an app that we push through our app store, you got to give us money, right? Do you see what I'm saying? And so like, I don't think Apple's going to allow Twitter to start making money off through an app that's on their native iOS. Do you see what I'm saying? Like without taking.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you guys are familiar with what Audible, like only recently could you actually get an Audible book from your phone. You'd have to buy it on Amazon on your desktop, and then it would be available in the app. Did you guys observe that? Or I'm like an Audible power user, so you guys notice that?
No, but I'm about to do, by the way, sorry, I was just looking it up, and I am correct. You'd have to pay 30% on your super follow. 30% of it goes to Apple. So kudos to fucking Tim Cook, just crushing the game. But no, I'm actually, it's good. I'm very curious about Audible. I've heard phenomenal things. I'm not even a regular user, so put me on.
Yeah, so it's just up until recently, I guess maybe it's been a while now, but you couldn't actually get the book on your phone. You would have to go and buy it on desktop, or it may have been you have to buy it on Amazon, and then it would become available. So they had worked whatever out with Amazon, which probably is just because it's like e-commerce, right? Where Apple doesn't take that on e-com. So you would have to buy it over there, and then it would be available in Audible. Because if you buy it in Audible per that rule, it could be 30%. But that's changed now. I'm not sure. I know that Apple recently had some updates around that were favorable to other companies.
So here's what the Twitter site says. How much of my subscription goes to support the person I super follow? When you super follow someone, they can earn up to 97% of what you pay after in-app purchase fees, up to 50,000 lifetime earnings based on Twitter's super follow credit terms. After 50,000 earnings, they can earn up to 80% of in-app purchase fees. And then asterisk with the breakdown. So $4.99 super follow subscription cost, $1.50 Apple in-app purchase fee, 30%. Then 10%, or then 10 cents goes to Twitter. So $3.39 is what the creator gets. So yeah, Twitter's making nothing. Apple's making all the money. It's just crazy. It's just like, and this comes down to antitrust sort of conversations and monopolies, et cetera.
So in September, Apple reduced their take to 15% for small businesses. So 15% for anybody making less than $1 million a year.
Ironically, though, because it goes through Twitter, Twitter's not a small business. Twitter. So they're taking,
of course.
You know what I mean? It's just kudos to them, man. Kudos.
But I mean, so on one hand, it seems brutal. On the other, it's like these businesses don't have any actual cost of goods. So I would think about this like a cost of good, right? If you're selling a physical product, it's a lot more than 30% to bring it to the world. And if you have an app, it's only 30%.
I also think, by the way, man, that we all get so spoiled by the distribution that we're used to just every day through the App Store and through Twitter and stuff. And we don't recognize the distribution that we're getting through our tweets comes from Twitter, but that really comes from Apple, right? Selling iPhones, right? Like, so anyway, so that's just.
So you mean these people aren't just logged on to mobile web? Scrolling?
Yeah.
No. So we.
I want to throw this out there. I have this like long held theory that at some point here, Apple is going to launch a social network. And this has literally like been swirling around in my head for years. I'm not sure I've ever said it out loud, but that there's been all these little things developing over like literally 10 years that, to me, the most recent one is that you can message people or you can mention people in messages.
Sure.
Right? All these little tiny things that make all these things that are ingrained in our lives get closer and closer to like how social networks are.
Didn't they do a super trash one, like a music social network that failed like immediately?
I think they may have, yeah. But like I'm talking about just like
Yeah,
completely
sure,
integrated
you're
into your
completely
life.
right. There probably
you
is
know?
something there for the future, like a profile element to that. But
Yeah, they did though on music. I remember that vaguely. That's interesting.
The Apple Music
think they
thing I
have the
remember that I
juice.
was offended by was them forcing that YouTube album onto my iPhone a decade ago. I don't know if you guys remember that.
This
that
is
was
like
weird.
I had to have a sit down with Marnie at one point because it was like she doesn't have any music saved to an app on her phone at all. And so if you do open Apple Music or plug it in, all it has is the fucking YouTube album. And I was just like, yo, like I don't think I'm sharing playlists with you. We're on a fucking family plan because like, I can't have that be the only thing that ever plays. And then she's like, I don't know how to get rid of it. I'm like, all right.
Feel that, dude. Feel that. I mean, dude. The last thing I'll say about the Apple stuff to go, even though obviously this wasn't really, it was more Shopify based.
Nah, bro. What do you got to say to Tim Cook, brother?
Well, listen, I respect the hustle. Clearly, the push here for Apple has been the ad network, right? I mean, that's really the real clear push with all the iOS updates, right? Like, if everyone wants to pretend that Apple really cares about your privacy, you're out of your mind.
Absolutely.
Like, you are truly a sheep of sheep and lost in the sauce if you believe that. And actually, to give you another example of ways that we sort of rent this distribution without recognizing it, is when I had MJ Observer, we were doing a lot of stuff in Apple News. And we were just gripping and ripping traffic through Apple News. I didn't have anything to do with that, right? That just has to do with, like, there being 100 million people that have an iPhone in their hand. You know what I mean? Like, so anyway, there's ways to game the system, and it's worth giving up 30% sometimes, I think, for the distribution. So anyway, that's my stick.
When Apple buys Shopify and then does the shopping app and you just roll in there and it's all DTC, like, and we're fucking going for
Ready.
it.
All right.
There are very few truly owned distribution channels, right? Email is one, podcasts and RSS feeds are another.
Sure.
All the rest we are leasing, as the god Seth Godin would say.
100p.
All right. Yo, just real quick,
I
just want to give a shout out to Oren's internet connection. He's at 95% uploaded on our media files right now.
Are you sitting in the den today? Where are you sitting, Oren?
No, I'm not. I am in the dining room.
You have a full dining room?
But look, we're just blazing fast.
Damn, bro.
You got a little routers heating up on your lap there.
I'm seeing dining room. We got we got art behind me. You know what I mean? We got the art from surfboard. You know what I'm saying? Up on the back wall. You know what I mean? If you're not on the video,
Swag.